You know, I was going to take a break from reviewing Debian-based distributions for a short while, but enough of you have requested that I take a look at Linux Mint Debian Edition that I had no other choice but to oblige. So today is the day I do that. So, for those of you that don't know, Linux Mint Debian Edition is very similar to the Linux Mint, or the other members of the Linux Mint family, with one glaring exception, is that it's based on Debian testing, and as such is a rolling, or at least semi-rolling distribution. Now, I'll talk more about the differences as we go through the install process. But like I said, I wasn't actually going to cover this distribution anytime soon, but you guys did request it quite a lot. A good number of you did, so I kind of feel I'd be letting you down if I didn't. So, I downloaded the latest installer, which as of recording is the March 2014 installer, and it clocks in at 1.3 gigabytes if I remember correctly, which I got to admit, I was considering it's a rolling distribution. I was expecting for some reason a smaller ISO file, but I booted it into my virtual machine, or I started the boot process as you can see here, and this is the live CD. I've got the 64-bit Cinnamon version, and actually I did check on the website to see if there were any noticeable differences between the Cinnamon and the Mate versions that they'd mentioned on the website, and they do mention that Mate is considered to be traditional, whereas they try and paint Cinnamon as slightly more innovative. Considering that they generally have a slightly more conservative view towards user interfaces than their big brother Ubuntu, I would say both are kind of traditional. Like I say, there's about a cigarette paper's width between them in differences, but that's just my humble opinion. Feel free to share your own down in the comments section below. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. So, let's start Linux Mint. Now, because I am running the Cinnamon edition, it uses a different display setup in terms of its software, so I might have to switch between various capture methods. So there might be a little bit of juxtaposition and coming out of immersion, as I might say if I was a Let's Player, in this recording, like there was with the previous Cinnamon one, but nothing too much there. So the difference between, this is referred to as a semi-rolling distribution, and from what I've understood from it, about once a month they actually take a snapshot of the updated Debian testing repositories and they provide them as an install update. So rather than have a new version released every 6 months, as you tend to do with the regular distributions, there you go, so I just had to switch over to recording 3D graphics now. You have lots of small updates rather than a big update every 6 months. So that's generally the thinking behind it. I have been called up before on outlining that I kind of feel that rolling distributions, and I guess part of this would be semi-rolling distributions, are known to be less stable than scheduled distributions. Scheduled distributions being the ones that are released every 6 months, rolling distributions being the ones that have small but very, very often and regular updates. Yeah, basically, if you know what you're doing and if you have an intricate knowledge of repositories, dependencies, and how your operating system works, then you can have a rolling release distribution that's just as stable as a scheduled one. But, like I say, it's only really as stable as a scheduled one if you are an advanced Linux user that knows your system very, very well. And the idea behind semi-rolling, as what you're seeing with Linux Mint Debian edition, is the splitting the difference, where you have a rolling distribution, so you have very cutting edge, very bleeding edge software updates, and very and the latest and greatest software, but also you have that kind of degree of stability by having monthly, I think it is, snapshots. Okay, so let's have a look at the bundled package. Now, I have had a look at this prior to recording. It's exactly the same. From what I can tell, I can't see any obvious differences in the packages that are being bundled. Color management, I don't remember that being there, but that could have just passed me by last time around. The important ones are, you've got VLC Media Player, that's included, Brasero, Banshee, you've got your LibreOffice, still comes with Firefox, Mozilla, comes with Pigeon, Internet Messenger, Transmission, XChat, IRC. You've got all your Mint tools, your software manager, which is as good as ever. You've got the Mint update tools, which are also, there you go, the update manager down there. So a lot of great stuff here. Now, when I was downloading and looking at the store page, I say the store page, the download page for Linux Mint, they do say that there might be some rough edges, that it's not as polished as their flagship distributions. But as of so far, just from looking at the live CD here, it looks just as polished to me. So I even had a bit of a gander in the software repositories, and they do include a Steam installer. They do include a lot of the things that you won't see in Debian testing. So they do improve the Debian testing experience significantly, actually. They probably add more to this distribution than they do to the Ubuntu one. But let's install and see where that takes us. Now, I'd imagine that they use the tried and tested installer that they use on their other two distributions, and why not? It's a good installer. It does the job. No complaints with it whatsoever. But then again, like I say, I've been installing distributions for quite some time now. Oh, actually, does this... this might be just a different version of this. Oh, that looks slightly different. Colored map. Yeah, this is... This is like the same process, the same stages, but... Right, so my full name. So, selecting a picture. This looks like a different... I know, right. Well, this does look like... Ah, here we go. What does the mount partitions look like? Oh, okay, we have to go into a separate... like program or something for that. So yeah, I've got the VirtualBox hard disk here. Now, for those of you that are interested, or unless it comes up and you guys are wondering, yeah, I've got the Mate Edition currently installed here. So hang on. Oh, so does this mean... Ah, mount partitions. Oh, yeah. Manually mount partitions. Right, okay, so... Ah, this is interesting. So we have to, this is basically what I have to do here is I have to see this is how my disk drive is partitioned. I've got swap space. For those of you who don't know what swap space is, don't worry about it for now. If you are unclear as to what swap space is and how to use it, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I will do a video explaining the concept behind swap space. And what it wants me to select the drive partition to assign to, which you don't do on Ubuntu. And you can also assign your home partition as well. It's a very user-friendly way of doing it, especially if your hard disk is already set up. Format as, exe, yep. Okay. Install grub, yep. We don't want to install grub, yep. Okay, so this does look like it's a little bit more advanced, a little different. And like I say, I've been installing Linux distributions for a good number of years now, so whereas this process is second nature to me, even on what appears to be a different installer, or at least a different version of the installer, although the process is very, very similar, it could possibly be a little trickier for new users. I'm sure if you read through the documentation, you'll have no problems. But then again, there is a lot of documentation when it comes to things like open source software, Linux distributions, and it can all be a little overwhelming. But that being said, I don't see too many problems here. I don't see anything that a quick FAQ wouldn't be able to solve. Okay, so we are in the install process now. At home, Linux Mint is the fourth most widely used desktop operating system behind Microsoft Windows, Apple Mac OS, and Ubuntu. Interesting. It's fully compatible with Debian. Do you know what I always question about these little install slides? Is why, like, it's often a slideshow saying how great the operating system is, but if you're currently in the process of installing it, you're sold. You're already signed up to the program. However, what they could be using those boxes for is perhaps a few video tutorials on some of the basics of your operating system. That's how I've always imagined it to be, how it can effectively be used. So far, I mean, this looks near identical minus the slightly different install process to the main flagship Linux Mint Cinnamon edition. And I've got to say, that's great. That's great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crack open the Firefox web browser as it's installing. And I want to just go through some of the bits and pieces and some of the information regarding the Linux Mint Debian edition, some of the things that the developers kind of want to outline. That black flickering is as a result of my virtual machine. Part of me says that it's because it's running out of virtual memory, like I've allocated a certain amount of video memory and it's run out, but no matter how much I set that memory to, it always seems to flicker a little. But I think it's just the nature of how it's being emulated. So I've got linuxmint.com, the start screen for Debian, and of course you can see the latest news about Cinnamon and Mate being released. If we just crack onto linuxmint.com, we should, I think, be able to pick up Linux Mint Debian edition from there. Okay, so what have we got here? This is what I was referring to earlier. Sleek, modern, innovative for Cinnamon is how they describe it. Stable, robust, traditional. So those are the two frameworks that they're trying to paint it as. Both of them, like I say, very identical. They could just go with one or the other and just have, or at least promote one above the other, but they seem to be like twins, as it were. Okay, so here we are, Linux Mint Debian edition, and this is the installer I've got. They don't have a 3-word tagline. Maybe they should. Do we have an announcement, or is it going through? Yeah, it's just going through to the blog now. Okay, so I think, is the install process downloading something? No, I think there must be something, maybe something in another window that's using up my bandwidth. Okay, so, proud to announce, yada yada. And of course, Linux Mint Debian edition, it comes in the two flavors. It comes in the Cinnamon edition, it comes in the Mate edition. But like I say, you guys have already seen Mate, how it works. What have we got here then? Highlights. Update Pack 8, Cinnamon 2.0, Mate 1.6. Latest Mint tools and improvements. Support for EFI and GPT. If you're new to LMDE, welcome to Linux Mint Debian. So yeah, LMDE in brief. Linux Mint Debian Edition is a semi-rolling distribution based on Debian testing. It's available in both 32-bit, 6 and 64-bit as a live DVD with Cinnamon or Mate. So that's 4 immediate Linux Mint Debian Edition distributions there and then. And I guess that's kind of sometimes why I have a bit of a go at Linux Mint for just throwing distributions at you of a very similar setup but with very small differences. Graphics card, that's the system requirements. Yeah, and it doesn't, it's not over the top. And it also comes as a torrent as well. I did get the torrent version, and by and large, it's always nice to take the torrent version and perhaps leave it to seed a little after you've downloaded it. If you'd like to pay back, if you'd like to pay something back to the Linux Mint community, if you're perhaps not particularly expert in technical fields, in the technical side of things, then maybe just, yeah. So you can download it here, and then there's some people's responses to it. But all in all, yeah. That's it. Known problems. That's, yeah. So yeah, Linux Mint Debian Edition, like I say, they do mention that it's a little rough around the edges, and there is a lot of downloading to do. So if you are on a data limit, stay away from this, because you will need to update regularly. Or at least you will want to. That's kind of the idea. It's for people that maybe want to steer away from Ubuntu, want to go more, because the Debian-based distributions are definitely more embracing of the open source culture. Ubuntu, whereas they do embrace open source culture to a very large degree, they also hold back a lot of intellectual property as well, which of course is their prerogative to do so. But it is because of attitudes like that are why platforms like Steam and SteamOS are being based on Debian and not Ubuntu. There was a discussion. They were thinking of basing SteamOS on Ubuntu because that's the platform that the developers have been developing for. But I think Linux, I think Ubuntu and the Ubuntu and Canonical, the company that own Ubuntu, would want to take a slice of that pie, and Steam were like, well, sod it, we'll just go to Debian. And yeah, Debian. Well, you can't deny that they have had one of the most positive impacts in the open source world and the Linux world that you can imagine. So, after doing this, is my third video now showcasing a Linux Mint distribution, and as you guys know, of course, I am a huge Linux Mint fan, and since I started making I've started making videos about Linux for years now, many of which are not online still. My opinion, even on this channel here, has changed on Linux Mint quite a lot. What I mean is that one of my criticisms of Linux Mint was that the update process was a little clunky, and having to reinstall on every single 6 months if you want to keep up to date, and not making it not making it obvious or easy to put your home on a separate partition, and now with their more long-term strategy of basing their flagship Linux Mint releases on long-term support releases of Ubuntu, which is presumably going to make the upgrade process just more like a service pack update process, as I think someone mentioned in the comment section, and that took away probably my biggest criticism of Linux Mint, which I think only leaves not having like a solid app store. I think the install process, Mint. The process to install packages from the repository is fine, is perfect, but it's not an app store. You can't buy products from it. But then again, is that entirely necessary? I mean, with Steam coming to Linux and Steam being embracing the Linux family in a fantastic way, and Valve and everything involved around that whole side of things. Are we going to see Steam as perhaps an app store not only for games for Linux, but also for software as well? I mean, we do know that on Windows and Mac, Steam sells software. In fact, my editing software for Windows, which is Magix, I bought on Steam because it's the idea of having an app store like that just to manage the software that I own. If my hard disk disappeared tomorrow, if my house burnt down, I would still own all the same software, which is kind of why I do like the idea of app stores. And maybe we might see some nice, pretty advanced proprietary software come to Linux through the Steam store, which would be pretty damn awesome. Steam, of course, are developing, or they have developed, a compatibility layer, which means that if you can install Steam on a system, you should then be able to install any Linux, any piece of software off the Steam store that's compatible with Linux. That means it should, in theory, be compatible for all distributions of Linux, providing you can actually get Steam up and running. I've not put that through its paces. I've not tested it. I can't personally verify that, but that is the claim. The claim is that if you can get Steam running, you can get everything. If you can get Steam running on Linux, then you can get any of the programs and games that are supported by Steam to run on the same distribution as well, which is, well, if it's true, that's pretty awesome. But I got to admit, that's a big claim. That's a big claim. And of course, Valve and Steam claim that in the future, we will be able to run any pieces, all the software available on Steam will be cross-platform, or at least available on Steam. That would be that'd be pretty damn awesome. That'd be pretty damn awesome indeed. To make anything that's available for Windows available for Linux. They claim that they're going to do it either through emulation, compatibility layers, streaming, whatever. They certainly are making some pretty fanciful claims. I hope they're true. And let's be honest, when Valve say they're going to do something, they, tend to be, pretty adamant that they're going to do something. Of course, let's not. I'm not saying that Valve are a company that cannot sin. Of course, we have seen a lot of problems with Valve and Steam over the past year or so. But to me, it's certainly overwhelming that the positives that they've brought to the gaming community have definitely outweighed the cons. Definitely so. And I would imagine that even Steam's harshest critics would probably agree with that. Maybe hesitantly agreeing with it, but agreeing with it nonetheless. Steam is a good platform. Right, okay, so still waiting for it to install. Yeah, after doing this is my third long video where I go through a distribution. Now I'm running out of things to say about Linux Mint. I'm running out of things to say, but like I say, if there are any distributions you'd like to see me take a run at, please leave them down in the comment section below. I do have a schedule of things that I'm trying to work on, but like I say, I wouldn't be testing this for you if a good number of you guys didn't mention it down in the comment section below. There was, you guys were certainly adamant that you wanted to see this. And hear my thoughts on it. So I'm certainly going to oblige if there is a particular demand for it. And I suppose I was going to wait until, I don't know what I was waiting for. I mean, it was always on the to-do list, but like I said, I was going to take a break. I was going to move away from some of the Debian based distributions, because Debian based distributions, it's my comfort zone. Once you're happy with the way that a distribution or a set of distributions are put together, then it's very comfortable. Might try something based on Arch. I'm always interested to see what those guys can do. Some of you guys wanted me to check out Puppy. I will be checking out Puppy. I think Puppy. I've used Puppy on netbooks before. It's a fantastic distribution. Very innovative. Very, very, very fast. I've used Puppy to restore very, very old, like laptops that are older than 15 years. 15 years. When I was working one of my previous jobs as a network admin for a small office, we were on an incredibly tiny budget. Very, very, very tiny budget. Everything we had was secondhand. And some of our machines were throwouts. Like various offices in the city were going to throw out their machines, and we said, look, if you're going to throw them out, can we have them? And that's how we gained a lot of our equipment. And what we ended up doing is we got these machines that were running Windows 95, and we cleaned them up. We sort of took them apart. We filled them up with RAM, those that weren't full up. We took out their hard disk drives. And then we put them as part of a PXE network. For those of you that don't know what a PXE network is that imagine a server, and then imagine all the network cables coming off of the server and coming out through various hubs, and then the computers being plugged, connected into the network would boot directly off the server. The server would be effectively acting as how you'd boot off a hard disk drive or a live CD or anything like that. You would actually boot through the network, and the actual interface and all the processing power and all the graphics power comes from the server. We went all out. What we did is we spent all our budget on the server, got the biggest, baddest server that we could find, and then we just used throwaway computers to plug into that network. We had a network of about 8 or 9 computers, just being PXE booted off of this one mega server, which ran Fedora, believe it or not. So it wasn't even inside my comfort zone. But the guy who set me up was a Fedora fanboy, and he knew a lot more about these kind of things than I did. So you had to defer to intellectual authority, don't you? And it worked a treat. It worked an absolute treat, because effectively providing... Oh, what have we got here then? There we go. Because basically once you've got the system set up, we had problems with it. As you have problems with all networks. But the problems that we had, you fix from the central main computer. There are a few problems. when you have PXE-based networks. There we go. The big problem, of course, being if something happens to your server, you've just lost 9 computers. There's nothing you can do. But that means there's only one computer you have to maintain, one server you have to maintain. So it's kind of a trade-off, you know. But it does have that added benefit that you're not constantly running around offices, typing from over people's shoulders, etc. And so we'll restart now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys who watch this channel run or have run or use PXE networks, but I'll just switch over to monitor capture. Nope, that's the wrong one. There we go. Right. Then I just need to reset. And I don't know what you guys think of this is booting off of the CD. I've got to actually go into my virtual machine and virtually take the CD out of the drive, I think. Storage, yeah. So I've got that. So I've got to... Right, okay. Hold on a second, guys. So basically what's happened is that the on the reboot, they haven't the CD wasn't ejected. So I need to just go into my virtual machine and eject the CD manually as you would do. There. And we can remove that. There we go. Start off again. So yeah, like I say, it was a good way to run a network, and we ran. There we go. That's the regular process. So you got the recovery mode. You got the install the thing mode there. There were actually a lot less settings on that install process, weren't there? There wasn't the setting to automatically log in, if I remember correctly, and things like that. It did. It was. It only gave you the bare essentials, but then again, of course, you can change these things once you boot it up for the first time. So it's all loose change here. And if you're running the Debian edition, you know, you should be doing it, being aware of knowing that it's going to have some rough edges. So I've not actually booted into an installed version of the system before, so this is going to be new for me. But I'm imagining it's going to be the same as what happened the last few times. Okay, so got the new screen here. It'd be interesting to see if I need to switch to the different recording mode as well. Okay, yep, I think so. Let's see, yep. So we've got the all too familiar LMDE Cinema 64-bit welcome screen. It doesn't have as many features, if I remember correctly, as the previous, as the Mate version and the Cinnamon version, the latest ones here. But here we go. It's the same old, isn't it? It's exactly the same. So a bit of research that I did before recording this video was to have a look at the repositories to see if there were some of the same repositories. And as soon as Mint install program comes up, I'll show you for yourselves some of the bits and pieces that come. So if you type in, for example, the Picasa, which is the you know, you can see you've got Picasa. Let's have a look if you can see Google Earth. Yep, that's available there. So you've got some of the more proprietary advanced packages. Steam, as I've been going on about it. You've got the Steam install there, Valve Digital. I haven't, of course, tried installing them. I'm going to assume that they work because Linux Mint, by and large, is a stable distribution. And if it isn't possible to work, then then there's a way to correct it. Now, I did type in Skype, and I did this on the test run. Doesn't appear to be, just from searching, a Skype client. Now, I did look on the Skype website, and it does say that there is a multi-arc Debian version available, and I did install that, but it did require 86 dependencies to be satisfied. That's a lot. It wanted to download 86. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm not a fan of Skype. It's a Microsoft-owned company, so I'm assuming you guys aren't particularly big fans of Skype either. It's poorly put together. Google Hangouts is better, and the only reason you'd conceivably have Skype is for business. It's the only reason I've got a Skype account is because my network my YouTube network desire to contact me. They do so through Skype, which is daft. It doesn't even install on my Android now. I uninstalled it once, and when I tried to reinstall it, it left some dud files, which for some reason can't be replaced unless you've rooted it, and I refuse to root my Android. But yeah, so by and large comes with the same software. It comes with the same, mostly the same stuff in the repositories. Let's just crack open the update thing. I haven't had a look at this yet, but I'm going to imagine it's the same update software. And again, bear in mind, I haven't updated this to the latest version. This is the version as it was on March 2014. So it's not bleeding edge. So even taking a look at this update package, the update manager, it's possibly even a little bit dated now, because I do believe they've updated their package, their update manager, even after March. So you probably will end up getting a more advanced version once you upgrade. I'm not going to upgrade in this video because this video is running at 31 minutes 27 seconds as it currently is, and an update is going to take some time as well. It's even struggling a little bit on downloading the package information. What's going on here? It's just doing so rather slowly is all. Sometimes you don't know whether or not that's just having rural broadband and it's just going through a bit of a rough patch. It is raining outside, so sometimes that slows down our internet connection, which is a bit daft, I know. So yeah, this is the older version of the update manager, but as you can see, I am almost certain that one of these updates, mint upload, mint welcome, mint sources, mint backup. So I would imagine that you might need to go through this process a few times to actually update to the latest version. And I would imagine that the mint update process would be updated, although it doesn't appear to be listed here. And yeah, it has Linux Mint. The Linux Mint repositories are pretty fantastic, and they're even more impressive on the Debian edition, because they've managed to just expand the compatibility of Debian testing, which is something they absolutely deserve a pat on the back for. Because as much as I like Ubuntu, I think Ubuntu, and more specifically Lubuntu and some of the children of Ubuntu, have made some fantastic contributions to the Linux community. I would like to see fewer distributions rely on Ubuntu for a number of reasons. I think it can give Ubuntu a bit too much of a stranglehold on the Linux community as a whole, and I think Debian might possibly have more to offer in terms of actual freedom. And there's a place for Ubuntu, there's a place for Debian, and of course there's a place for Mint. But what can be a little bit dangerous is that when one software one distribution becomes so powerful that that people come to rely on it too much and have no plan B, and that's part of the important aspects behind diversity of software, which is what the open source community is all about. And like I say, diversity is important. Diversity in software licenses, diversity in the software itself, being able to have multiple choices is a good thing. Of course, there is the counter to that, that if you have too much choice, you're spreading people's skills too thin, and sometimes it's best, for example, to all collaborate on one monolith open source project, i.e. GNU image manipulation program, otherwise known as GIMP. There aren't very many competitors with GIMP, but GIMP itself is actually a pretty damn good piece of software, and has done wonders for the open source community. Personally, I would like to see them actually take a shot at doing that with movie editing software and video editing software, because that is one aspect where I feel Linux is tailing behind Windows quite poorly on that one, but that is a video for another time. This clearly looks like a very competent and fantastic distribution. I've heard a few rumors about Linux Mint Debian Edition that have actually been conflicting. I've heard people say that they're keeping Linux Mint Debian Edition in a good way, and they're keeping it very close to their hearts at the moment because they could end up using Linux Mint Debian Edition as their flagship distribution at some point if Ubuntu does something that makes it less attractive to the Linux Mint developers, and that is quite likely. But then again, I've heard rumors saying that this distribution might not be around in a couple of years' time because of lack of users who, use it. I don't know whether or not either of these rumors are true, but these are things that have been thrown around quite a lot recently. That being said, Linux Mint Debian Edition clearly is it's Debian testing but polished and as glamorous as any other Linux Mint distribution. If you are interested in a rolling release, or at least a semi-rolling release, this would be my first. I would say this would be my first choice of rolling releases if you count it as a rolling release. It's easy to use. Knowing the Linux Mint team, they have probably put stability quite high, if not at the top of their priority list. If I was to describe the from my knowledge of the Linux Mint development team, the top word I would use is sensible. Sensible. They are people that they're the kind of people that I want running my mission critical operating system. So with that in mind, if you are looking for a rolling release, then it looks good to me. That's all I'm saying. So that's going to be about it from me today. Thank you very, very, very much for watching. And if you do want me to cover any particular topics or distributions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments section below. Like I said, this particular video today is done at the request of you guys. So I'll be doing a lot more like it. Thanks very much for watching. I will try and at some point cover more non-Debian based distributions. I want to see where Fedora's at. Last time I used Fedora was a good number of years ago on that very same server that I mentioned. Actually, it was the last time I used Fedora in a big way. So it would be nice to see how it's developed, how it's changed since then. So I may be doing that one at some point soon, maybe when they make a new release. But until then, I will continue to make videos in my own way as usual. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Take care now.